Okay, welcome everybody to Warrant Information Night 2026. My name is Chuck Wooster. I'm your elected town moderator. I'll be running the proceedings this evening. It's a pretty informal event tonight, so there's no Robert's rules or anything related to what we have to go through when we get to actual town meeting. So this is the first of 4 events in our town meeting schedule. The other 3 are much closer to town meeting. The Monday before town meeting, we'll have our usual budget and candidates night up at the high school. And then we'll have our floor meeting, the floor meeting of town meeting on the Saturday, first Saturday, and then voting on Tuesday as usual in March. So this is the first of the meetings. And the general idea for this meeting was it was a chance for boards to present to the voters and the voters to ask questions, potentially for boards to change their mind on what they were going to do because the warning has not yet been set. In actual practice, it's turned into a little bit more of a chance to talk about some of the things that are likely to be on the warning, and that's what we're going to be doing tonight. It is a chance for town or school to make some presentations. The school board didn't have anything that they wanted to be involved with for this meeting, so they're not going to do that. So we've got a full evening of town-related activities tonight. So I think that's the general format here. Our presenters are rolling on in. What we're going to do is we're going to have kind of 2 sections. The first section of the meeting tonight is going to be talking about the local options tax. Yes, it's good. Got to round up the gang. So when this tax was passed 10 or 12 years ago, the idea, this is the tax on rooms, meals, and alcohol, was that the money would be put into a fund, and then the voters would release that money for capital-related activities. So that's why every year on the ballot there'll be some kind of an item or a group of items to kind of fulfill that obligation to take that money out of the account and spend it. So this first part of the meeting is going to be talking about items potentially be funded from the local option tax fund. So that's what we're going to do right now. We've got 3, 6, 7 items that people will be presenting on. And my thought is we'll have everybody kind of roll right through those 7, and then we'll have a chance for a Q&A while we have our presenters here. So we'll take that time to ask questions. Yes, Tim.
Just a brief point, worth noting, and maybe we'll bring it up later, is that that LOT generates approximately $350,000 a year. I think it's worth mentioning that, if that's appropriate.
Yeah.
And that these items together total $350,000.
Yeah.
So one need not necessarily pick and choose a voter. A voter could actually support all of them. And there are some who would suggest that people consider doing so.
Yep, good point. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, John. Yeah, the total of these 7 for this evening is $350,000. So what I'll do is I'll have each of our presenters introduce themselves, talk about what they're requesting on the ballot, and talk for 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll just kind of continue our way right down the line and then open it up for Q&A. So that's the plan. Any other questions, points of order before we get started? Okay, great. Chief, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chief Connie Kelly, Hartford Police Department. With me is Martha Morse. She's a dispatcher with the Communications Center. So what we're asking for is $50,000. This has been a 3-year project. This is the final installment of that project to implement our 4th dispatch console. We currently have 3. Marty's going to explain what our dispatch console is. Can you go back real quick? Sorry.
Just a quick explanation. This console is where the dispatchers work. The computer systems that you see up there going from left to right. The first set is our CAD system, our 911 system, where we receive all the 911 calls for our area. The next 4 monitors are a CAD system where we enter all the calls into when we receive the calls and we need to dispatch units, along with the fire alarm system. And then the 2 monitors off to the right, camera system, and our radio system where we dispatch police, fire, EMS, we tone everybody. And then in front of us, we have instructions for 911, and we also have our 7-digit telephone system. that's all incorporated into that console.
So you might ask, what do we get for the $50,000? Obviously, it's the final installment of this 3-year project, so it'd be completion of the capital improvement project that was put in place 2 years ago with the final year. Marty will explain some of the other items.
So with this console, it's going to help us with operational, especially in the summertime. We get overwhelmed with flooding, thunderstorms, and having to bring in additional assistance. It's going to give us another desk to be able to have 4 people on during these high priority events, also snowstorms, major structure fires. It will help reduce the multitasking overload of those personnel that are working, improve the incident management, which in turn helps with the safety and the risk, faster call answering times, excuse me, dispatching times decreasing, the fatigue on the other dispatchers that are in the room, and providing some redundancy. Supports training and onboarding when we have people that we need to train, which in turn helps with the morale and retention. And it also allows for another console to be there when we have to do maintenance on the existing consoles that we have, so that there's no downtime.
This is the language that will be placed on the ballot for the 4th console and the $50,000. And this is where the information comes from that allows us to use lot funds for purchases. And then our final slide, basically, this is the revenue that our dispatch center brings in currently with the 3 consoles. The bottom one, Ludlow Fire, is added in. They will not come on until we have the 4th console. That's been a stipulation that we've put in place. We need to provide the quality dispatching services. We're not going to take on contracts if we can't fulfill them to the best of our ability. So that one's on hold. We've also had several other agencies reach out to us for dispatching services, and they've been told the same thing, that they need to wait until we have that 4th console. And then obviously we would hire more staffing, but we've got 3 vacancies, so we'll be all set on that end. And that's the conclusion. The last slide is questions.
Great. Thanks, Chief. Yeah, great. Move right down the line.
Brian Gass, Director of Public Works. The 2 items we're asking for, one is a sidewalk plow machine, but it's also a multi-purpose machine. We have a difficult time in the downtown area clearing the smaller side streets, as I can show from the photo there. The one to the left, you can see that's one of our sidewalk plow machines. It just can't navigate in the tight areas downtown. And it's going to also be a multi-purpose machine. It's going to be something that, besides doing snowplow removal in the wintertime, there'll be a brush we're looking to get to it, a broom type of attachment. And also in the summertime, we're going to be looking to see if we could use it around guardrails when we do our roadside cutting, that we can't get our big over the rail mowers close enough to the guardrails. So we're thinking this is something where it'll help us to get back there. We can push the dirt and push the weeds back from the guardrails to help us keep them clear in the summertime. So that's what we're looking for. This is the type of equipment we're looking at. It is a stand behind, meaning that the operator would actually stand on it. It's not something like in the wintertime that we would probably use on the larger sidewalk areas, like on Route 5 and going up to Wilder. It would be primarily used downtown in that area. We could use it, depending on the weather. But that's the primary purpose of it. And you can see there's a couple of the attachments that we can get for it. So that is, we're asking for $40,000. We just use what's called the Boss company, the Boss Rater, but that's just an example. There are other companies out there we would take a look at, see to get the best deal if approved. So that's the first item we're asking for. So the second item we're looking for is a backhoe. That's our current backhoe that we have. And getting what's called a thumb clamshell bucket for it. The reason why we need it, it would allow us right now, the backhoe that we have, the buckets there, we can just basically dig with it. It's primarily a digging type of function. This would give us the capability to actually grab things. We could grab trees. We could grab debris. We could grab other things with it. The only capability we have right now is with our mini excavator, the Doosan. And as you can see, that needs to be towed. That requires more labor, takes more time. It has to be set up where if we had, say, a tree down, and we just wanted to go move a tree out of a road or whatever it might be, somebody could jump in the backhoe, and being rubber tired, they could ride it down the road and go get that. So what we would be looking to get, there's a bucket on there, and there's just an example. That's the same type, a similar type of John Deere, cat tractor that we have, and that's what it would be utilized for. And we're asking for $15,000 to utilize that. And then also too, we're, some other things we're looking for doing 2 crews. Say we had 2 areas of the town we were working in and we needed that capacity at both places. This would give it to us now. We could put the deuce on in one place and we could put the backhoe in another place to get that done. So that is what we're asking for the lot funding.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Scott Cooney. I'm the Hartford Fire Chief. Tonight I'm presenting from Watt a request to construct or build a storage shed for our public safety mechanic. We're asking on the ballot for $14,500 to go towards that cost. What this will do is the funding is already in lot. We're looking for that allocation from the voters. What we would get is a cold storage area for auto, apparatus, parts, tools, equipment, tires that the fleet mechanic can store on site on the VA cutoff road property. He currently services fleet in excess of 35 vehicles, trailers, and other equipment at the public safety building, and storage is pretty tight. The apparatus bay where he works can only hold so much storage for parts, tools, and equipment. And we're looking to construct a cold storage area where that equipment can be stored outside the building. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Scott Hausler. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation. Our local options tax request is for funding to resurface and relining of courts at the Maxfield Sports Complex. During our budgetary process, the select board decided to remove the $50,000 from the operating budget and asked the voters to put it in the local options tax. Obviously, I'm here tonight because I support that. What we get here, at the Maxfield complex, there are currently 4 tennis courts and 2 basketball courts. And every courts of this type are generally resurfaced every 5 to 10 years. We're at the 10-year mark, a little over that for these courts. So they're ready to be surfaced and relined already. However, with some of the popularity that we have with some of the activities out there, we're looking to kind of change up the court resurfacing. So what we're asking to do with the $50,000 is to converting 2 current tennis courts that currently have overlaid pickleball lines on it into 6 dedicated pickleball courts only. Also relining to the other tennis courts that we have that have pickleball overlays, 2 pickleball overlays right now. We're looking to put 4 pickleball overlays on those 2 tennis courts. Also relining 2 basketball courts that are there as well. If the local options tax funding is approved, then we'd be able to process an RFP and get it all hopefully done so we can have the courts ready to go throughout the summer of this year. Just a couple examples of some usage. Just pickleball in general. We had a program that had 138 individuals that signed up for that 2-day per week program for 31 weeks. So it gives you an idea here, just showing the type of usage. 8,556 usage visits. Obviously, it's not that total amount of people, but so it's 138 people that came that amount of time throughout the course of the summer. Also, throughout the entire court systems that we have there, April through October of 2025, we had 143 court reservations. That equated to 1,701 hours of usage. So it's over 213 days. So quite a bit of use. We're lucky to get 10 years out of the resurfacing and looking forward to advance the court options for the public by having some dedicated pickleball courts as well as retaining the tennis and basketball. I think that's it. That's a lot article that will be on the ballot.
Thanks, Scott.
Can everyone hear me from all the way up here?
Yes, we can.
My name is Mark Bradley. I'm the Executive Director at White River Council on Aging. We are requesting $38,000 from the local option tax revenue that's already been collected to make repairs to address life and safety related issues at the Bugbee Senior Center building. We're organized a little differently from the other town departments, so I wanted to give just a brief overview. So the facility is owned by the town of Hartford, and the White River Council on Aging operates the senior center. In some towns, it will just be a nonprofit that is independently running a senior center. In other towns, the municipality is running the entire thing. In Hartford, we have a partnership, and I think it works really well. Financially, the town puts in typically between $130,000 and $150,000 a year to operate the center, and the Council on Aging puts in about $700,000 to operate. So there's a wider variety of services and programs available for older adults in Hartford as a result of this arrangement, and it provides resiliency. We've seen in other towns, municipalities shut down their senior centers. We've seen nonprofits that have been unable to survive, but this way, with both of us trying to operate the senior center, then there's some continuity of services for older adults, which I think is very important. Just a little overview, if you've never been to the senior center or are planning to at some point in your life, we are experiencing a pretty large surge in activity in recent years. This past year, we almost reached 55,000 service units between Meals on Wheels, the lunch program, and the array of life enrichment, health and wellness programs. We do offer some social services as well. We have a very robust volunteer program. We have dozens of community partnerships with local schools, other community-based organizations and nonprofits. And then outside of the senior center hours, the facility is open to the community for a variety of different meetings and functions. So it's a very, very well-used asset in the town. So it is also 45 years old, which is not old enough for an AARP membership yet, but it is starting to show some signs of its age. So the select board chartered a committee that was made up of different constituents, Bugbee people, general community members, people from the town, and select board. And one of the recommendations included a cluster of pretty urgent life and safety projects that the select board determined would be appropriate for the local option tax. So I will run through those pretty briefly. It's kind of hard to take pictures of some of these, so next time. The first two have to do with the most recent visit from the fire marshal. So these are kind of required to get done just to maintain occupancy. So there's some general safety improvements in the basement that need to get done, and some upgrades to the electrical equipment, or in some cases just doing the electrical stuff correctly this time. The next set of projects, so we need to so we recently switched to heat pumps, but the old HVAC system is still in place, and that is a liability just to have that sitting there without being maintained. So it's past time to decommission those pieces of equipment. We have some fire exits where the crash bars are starting to fall apart, so it's really turning into a hazard. Something I've learned working with emergency personnel from Windsor County and the town of Hartford is that one of the hazards that we should be prepared for are power outages. Bugbee functions as a heating and cooling shelter, and also a place where we're able to check up on vulnerable members of the population. But in order to do that, we kind of need electricity, especially as more and more of our utilities go electric only. So the plan here, I want to be clear, the town already owns a generator that I don't want to, yeah, I guess it was the wrong type, so they still have it, and it's likely it'll work at Bugbee to get that installed there. So The last set of projects has mostly to do with the grounds. So the hillside, there's a retaining wall in the back that is basically rotting away. With recent floods, we've started to notice some erosion, so I think we need to reconstruct that and pay a little bit more attention to the hillside. That also includes taking care of some of the trees to make sure that none of them become hazards. Should we lose branches or hopefully if none of them fall over. The bulkhead as well, the envelope of the building is very vulnerable where the bulkhead that goes into the basement is. That I could have taken a bit of that. But the weather stripping is just completely deteriorated and it's developed a nice colony of crickets down there and we have to basically keep it covered with a tarp, otherwise water gets into the building, which is no good. And then the last thing, I was hoping we could resurface the parking lot. If anybody's been to Bugbee, you know about Lake Bugbee that appears every year at the foot of the parking lot because of draining issues. It turns out that that's really complicated and expensive. So in the meantime, the lines are worn out, and this is actually because, especially with how busy the senior center is, it does turn into a safety hazard. And so just having clearly marked lines and handicap spots would really go a long way to make sure people are able to get in and out of the facility safely. And I think that's it. We had it all up, and that's $38,000. So.
David Briggs.
Great, thanks, Mark.
Good evening, I'm David Briggs, and I'm here together with the Hartford High School Alumni Association and working collaboratively with the 250th year celebration for the town of Hartford. And I'm personally pleased on more than one level because in 1976, when the nation's bicentennial was celebrated in Hartford, I was the chairman of that. Now I've been satisfactorily replaced by Linda Miller, who's dealing with the 250, and I'm bringing my energy to the Hartford High School Alumni Association. And we're introducing this year, finally, at long last, after decades of sort of humble advancement, a development campaign for perennial sustainability of the association. We encourage you to save the date, which is a joint event for the 250th in the annual alumni homecoming celebration of June 27th, 2026. We'll have a particularly special parade and a post-parade picnic, which you may recall happens out here in Lyman Point Park, which was our bicentennial project back in '76. This is an event that, although carries the name of the Alumni Association, is really intended for all of Hartford and indeed is enjoyed by all of Hartford. When you see the people lined up and down the streets. Do you have the slides that yeah, there you go, some images of people rallying forth. The parade, post-parade picnic is particularly pleasing because it integrates all the classes where they get to see people on either side of their classes, and in many cases move on to evening events that are just for their own class. We're coming forth with our request this year because we think that a successful alumni association confirms civic pride. It sets a positive example for youngsters, and moreover, it supports the local economy. Full circle with a local option tax, rooms and meals revenues are enhanced by activities like this. And although it would seem to emanate from the school system, it's really almost more of a Chamber of Commerce promotional event for the town because it really showcases all of us on that particular day. We're very pleased to be placed on the warrant for voter approval. We'd like to make that case that this is really nothing but good for the town of Hartford. We're particularly pleased to help double the efforts in this sort of seminal year for the 250th year celebration. And as I say, this is an event that contributes to social and economic vitality in Hartford. The request is for $5,000. And the select board has gently challenged us to match that. And we're striving for one better. We're going to triple it. And we have the pledges and commitments in place for the first $5,000 match as I speak tonight. So, you know, when leadership steps up and gets behind initiatives like this, it's a ripple effect. So in writing to all of our alumni association constituents across the nation, we get kind of a wow response, applause, and happy to see that all these years that we've done a nice job. We're going to do a really nice job for the 250th year celebration. And as you well know, if you know me, I could go on forever.
Yes, I know that.
John Everstock said I had 6 minutes. And I think
Thanks, David. Yeah, Miranda.
Yeah. So a lot of what you've heard tonight has been project specific. This law item is a little bit different. So currently, the town charter states that the town of Hartford is authorized to levy or collect a tax of 1% on rooms, meals, and alcoholic beverages. The net proceeds are to be deposited in a capital reserve fund until directed by a vote of the town. So we were thinking we'll do a little something different. And the select board is requesting that the town authorize a transfer of $137,500, which is the remainder of the $350,000 of the local option tax revenue, to be transferred to the general fund in order to reduce property taxes. So basically, right now what we're seeing is about a 1.5% property tax increase without the transfer of these funds. If the voters approve this transfer, then the tax increase would reduce to 0.7%. So for example, what does this look like in like your bill? So a $250,000 home right now with that 1.5% increase would expect $24.65 additional on their property tax bill. And then a $500,000 home would expect $49.30 of an increase. But if that revenue is transferred, that would be $11.50 and $23 respectively. So pretty good use of the funds. Hope you guys approve it.
Great, thanks, Miranda.
Yep.
Thank you for all of our presenters, department heads, and everybody for a quick run through of proposals for the local option tax revenues. We've got some time here for some Q&A. Who would like to ask a question? If you're so moved, please walk up to the microphone over there and just introduce yourself to everybody so we know who you are.
I'm Dan Oskatoff. I'm from Wilder. I have a question for Mark. I really enjoy the apples in the front of that Bugbee Center, walking back and forth from church on Saturday afternoons. And lo and behold, when they reconstructed the intersection, they took my tree away and left some type of an apparatus to control the stoplights. Is it a possibility to put trees back in there, or is there just no space anymore?
I think we could probably work something out. Yeah, why don't you come see me sometime? We were pretty unhappy about that too. It is the state's right of way all the way up to the face of the building, so there wasn't really too much we could do. We were able to save some of the other apple trees that were in front of the building by getting them to just slightly move some things around. So, yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
Hi, my name's Ida Griesemer. I live in Wilder and I'm a member of the Hartford Select Board. Typically I sit where Mark is sitting when I'm in this room, so it's nice to have another vantage point tonight. Having been involved with the development of these proposals for you all, I don't have a question, but I just want to make a brief comment if that's all right.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. First of all, I really appreciate everyone's presence in this room and online and being involved in this process. It really means a lot, and it makes me feel like we're not working in a void as we put together this budget and work closely with all the department heads to try to propose something that is amenable to our voters. I think all of these proposals, almost all of them, are really important and essential to our town to function at a high level. And I hope that you all support them. I think the one exception is maybe the parade, which is something that a committee has really come together and, wants to do something wonderful for our town. And I love that, Mr. Briggs, that the commitment to seeking out a match and going above and beyond what we requested. I think that's demonstrates really wonderful commitment and sort of willingness to gather together support for something that you believe in. And I love that the voters will get to weigh in on that piece as well. I think, as you all heard, so there's some other really essential pieces, like from our police department, our Department of Public Works. I want to shout out just briefly the proposal from Parks and Rec and that Scott Hausler proposed for the resurfacing of the courts. I think this is something that, compared to some of the other ones, it might be like, well, do we really need this? I think I just want to say that the Parks and Rec really does so much for our community in terms of offering affordable recreation opportunities and just ways for everyone in our town to get outside, get involved, be social with each other while doing something physically active. And in my other job, I work in public health. And as you all know, you don't have to work in public health to know that, remaining active is one of the most important things we can do for our health. And the fact that we have such a strong Parks and Rec department in this town, I think, is a major asset. And the resurfacing of the courts is something that is essential to those courts being something that we can continue to use. If we put it off, it will cost a lot more in the future. So I hope you support all these items and that one included. Thank you.
Thanks, Ida.
Hi there, my name is Kim Souza. I live in Hartford, Vermont, and I have a couple little popcorn questions for Chief Kelly and Martha with the console. Just for context, this is 50,000 being added to funds that have already been reserved. Could you just summarize the full cost of the fourth console and how much has already been put in reserve for that purpose?
So currently there's 100,000 in reserves. Back when this was first initiated as a project, it was 150,000. I have not gotten estimates on the new project. It's going to be over 150,000 for the new console. So we've been working with some of our contract towns to see if they will pick up the rest of the cost for us in addition to the 150,000.
Awesome. So just for the clarity around the fact that it's not just a $50,000 project, it's an over 150,000 that
Yes.
the department has been planning for years and saving money for. And that you said there were 3 vacancies in the dispatch
Center, yeah.
So we'll be adding a console, and then there are 3 positions already budgeted for, but it might.
We have
additional.
probably 25 applicants currently for those 3 positions.
And then it will be at capacity with 4 consoles.
Yes.
Thank you for that. And then for Scott Hausler for Parks and Rec, I couldn't agree more with Ida about the fact of the just robust vitality of the Parks and Rec department, and how valuable it is to the town, but also that Maxfield complex was a giant financial investment for the town. So I also just want to concur that the upkeep of an investment that big is sort of the responsibility going forward that we all know. And so I think this is a great way to use local option tax funds. And then 2 more quick, Mark, Bugbee, what was so these local option tax funds, I guess just for refresh my memory, the ARPA funds with the feasibility study, could you just give a brief summary of what the status of that whole situation was?
Yeah, so that those funds were allocated to conduct an architectural feasibility study, really to assess the current state of the facility against the way that it's being used. And so with the results of that study, after the conclusion, which I think was in February, at that time, the select board asked to charter a committee to say, okay, well, we have the results of this. What are the next steps? And with the committee, there was 3 recommendations. One were some highly urgent plumbing issues related to some of the stuff in our kitchen, which of course is the center of operations for our most essential programs. Those projects are underway. They're being scheduled as we speak. The second was a group of funds that I just presented for today. And then the third was the next step towards capital improvements that may involve renovation, relocation of the facility. At that, the select board determined that this year's budget may not be the best place for that. And so we're going to be circling back. I don't think we had disbanded the committee, but maybe we'll figure out another path forward towards capital improvements, just because the facility is at capacity and coming towards, you know, the end of what we can do with it as is. So
Gotcha. And so that the $80,000 in ARPA funds has been expended on all that other, like that's already been allocated towards.
We actually spent less than that on the architect who took a reduction in their usual fee. So we got a pretty good deal, a full feasibility study for, I think, closer to half of that, with the remaining ARPA funds going back into the ARPA fund account, which was then reallocated to other things.
Yeah, so those funds were not jeopardized in any way. Okay,
That's
cool. And then my last question, sorry, would be, I think for John, I realize we're not looking at the options for allocation of the new local sales tax 1% that went into effect July 1st. That just is going to go to offset the tax rate, but could you just tell us what that amount was for the fiscal 26?
We've had one quarterly report from the state, based on which we feel pretty comfortable that it means that we will be collecting approximately $1.2 million or more in local option sales taxes every year. That being the case, the board knew that we had to apply that to property taxes, because that's the language in the article that the voters voted for, that this local option sales tax would be used for property tax relief. And so in the budget discussions, the select board decided to authorize the transfer of 1.1 million of that 1.2 million toward the general fund, which will then result in that much of the reduction in the tax bills that go out in July.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Kim.
Hello, everybody. Dennis Brown of Hartford. I have a few questions, and so I'm a little bewildered about the sidewalk plow. And this is before your time, Brian, but I know that not so long ago we bought, I think it was, if I remember going off memory, $181,000 sidewalk tracked vehicle to do our sidewalks. And at that time, I argued about the versatility of it, because if we bought a tractor with a loader or plow, then we could have used it maybe for mowing or put other attachments on it, where the $181,000 machine was pretty much just for snow, period. And so I don't like dropping bombs on people. So I don't think I really expect an answer right here and call everybody on the carpet. But I would like to know more about that, and why we're going that direction now. If that machine we bought then couldn't handle this, I'm just as I said when I started, I'm bewildered about that. And on the Bugbee part, I don't know. I went into the craft fair and I didn't pay attention, so I don't know if this is a correct idea or a question, but I thought the needs of the Bugbee thing for a while now have been a new handicap door, and I don't know if that's already been done, but I didn't hear with these repairs anything about that, so I don't know if that's been done yet or not.
Yes, so the doors as they are currently ADA compliant. If we were to automate them, then they would be non-compliant with ADA, because it's a different set of regulations for an automatic door versus a non-automatic door. When we looked into it, the amount of capital improvements that would be needed to accommodate that were significant enough that we included that with the larger capital improvement plan. It of course would be nice to have. It would make the building more accessible, but it is just one of many accessibility projects. So some of those we are piecemealing. So for example, the sidewalk facing entrance is not at all accessible right now, and so we don't use it. We have a project that's going to start in May that is being funded through the White River Council on Aging, through Advanced Transit, and through AARP Vermont to install a handicap ramp to the door. So that'll be step one for that one door. So it's an ongoing process. If we really truly want to make those automated, though, it's going to have to be in the scope of a fairly large project. It's not, unfortunately, not as simple as just putting a mechanism on the door.
Yeah, if we're having trouble getting people in the door, I would have thought that had been priority. I understand all these other things are important too, but the entrance ought to be, I mean, I'll just let you in on a little secret. As of tomorrow, I'm going to officially be a senior citizen.
Hey, congratulations.
So
Yeah.
I'm okay now, but maybe I'd need that in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Brian, I know Dennis, he didn't ask you for an answer about the sidewalk plow. Anything you want to say about that? We'll give you a chance to.
Well, the tracked plow that Dennis is talking about is fairly large. And as like I showed in the one picture, if you go down the street there, you'll notice there's steps coming out. There's just a lot of obstructions. It's a back and forth like this, and they can't make it down there. So 3 winters ago, the first winter when I was here, the contractor that we hired to clean up downtown, he had one of these boss raiders, and it was just a phenomenal piece of equipment. It made it so much quicker. They could zoom in and out. It'll just be an added benefit. It'll be, efficiency. It'll clear stuff. It's just a piece of equipment that we feel really enhance snow removal in the tighter areas downtown.
Yes, next question.
Tad Montgomery, Wilder. 2 questions for Scott and one for Mark. Scott, as I understand it, being a pickleball player at Maxfield, there's substantial revenue that comes into the town. Do you know off the top of your head what the pickleball revenue is annually?
I don't have that for you tonight, but I can certainly provide it at some point. Yeah, we charge a nominal fee for a group, for an individual to be a part of like a pickleball pass for a season, where you pay per court visit, that type of thing. So, I mean, you say substantial, I mean, there's some revenue there. I mean, we're also planning to work with the pickleball groups as well, for replacement program of some equipment and nets and that type of thing, and get them involved in the whole project. So they're interested. Some of the individuals are interested in supporting it, so there'll be some sharing of revenue as we do this project. So.
Second question to you, Scott. There are cracks in the cement in a couple of places. Is this resurfacing going to address those cracks also?
So the cracks are hairline cracks and some larger cracks in the asphalt. That's pretty common with courts of this age, and there's a system that they overlay the crack with the fabric, and it's an expansion fabric, so hopefully that'll resolve it after they fill it. So the cracks will be filled and the surface will be smooth again, without any cracks for a period of time until they have to be restored again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mark, as I understand it, the Bugbee Center needs some fairly substantial energy improvements also. Is that being taken care of through the CIP process, or?
I sure hope so. We are, that building circulates air to the point that we don't really need a ventilation system for the main volume of the building. There's no, and you can see it after snowfall that you can tell exactly where the dining room is because all that snow melts, and then the wings continue having it. So there was an energy audit in 2015 parts of those did make it to the results of the feasibility study. So it's really up to the select board how they want to move forward with some of these much more major projects. This was several years ago, like around the pandemic, when we did price out insulation for the full volume of the facility, and it was a 6-figure project. So it's not the kind of thing that would reasonably fit on the local option tax this time around. So I will say if you want to play pickleball and you're over 60, you can have access to the courts at Maxfield for free if you sign up through Bugbee. So
Yeah, I should add to that too. So what we charge for are programs that are scheduled and organized for the court usage. So the courts are free to the public all the time, with the exception of the times that we schedule it and program it for Bugbee or for the park and rec programs or for a tennis match. If you want to reserve a court yourself, you can and know that you go out there, the court is yours. There's a nominal fee for that. Just wanted you to know that they are free and open to the public the majority of the time.
Thanks, Tad, for those questions. Other questions for our presenters here as we wrap up this section of the evening?
Suzanne Provo, I live in Wilder. I was just wondering with the 1% tax, if it would be possible to put it really back where the public, where the taxpayers can benefit and really see, and the whole town, like beautifying our village with trees, flowers, and not only putting the trees in and the flowers, but there needs to be a maintenance. It just seems to me that collecting these taxes, the businesses are out there. We should kind of reward our businesses and the people and beautify a town. And I think it would just encourage more people to come to the village because it's really starting to happen downtown. An example, just so that I don't know, I'm from the Northeast Kingdom originally, Newport, Vermont. I don't know if you've ever driven through there, but what they are doing with their sidewalks, the flowers, the mediums, is just so beautiful. You can't help but notice it when you drive in. And I think that's might be, I don't know if that's possible, but maybe we don't need a new, maybe we could use a shovel for the sidewalk. You know, I'm not trying to be smart. I'm just saying, maybe put it towards where we can all really benefit and see it.
Great, thanks, Suzanne. I see a number of select board members and the town manager taking notes here, so yeah, that's a, yeah, and Tim, why don't you respond?
Yeah, I appreciate your energy around that because I've been an advocate for that for a long time. Tim Ferriol from White Road Junction. And I've been in downtown a long time. And I will say over the last couple of years, we've done some pretty profound work down there. We have beautiful planters now. We had hanging pots this summer, new trees that have kind of started to show up. So there is some genuine great efforts that are happening in downtown. I think we can obviously always do more, but they're definitely come down next spring and summer and walk around. It's looking a lot better. So thank you to everybody.
Miranda, want to speak to that?
Could I also add to that I would also suggest maybe connecting with the tree board to see maybe what their capacity is to adding some more plant life to our downtown and maintaining it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, do I have time to add a couple of apple trees?
The planting list is being assembled up here. Yeah. Any other questions? Anybody has not had a chance yet? We're getting close to the end of this section, so I want to make sure.
Have a presentation on the tube water.
Yes.
Yes, yep. Those are coming, Marcial said. Yeah. Yeah, Kim, we'll give you the roundup
Just
here.
quick follow-up for Scott Hausler. There's still going to be some tennis court.
Yes.
They're not all pickleball, right? Correct. Great. And last year there was specifically local option tax on the ballot dedicated toward village beautification, right?
2 years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago. Okay. Yeah. But then the Downtown Business Association has gotten funds through a downtown vibrancy grant, which we've also been able to fund. Like this year, it was funding the hanging baskets and the maintenance of those all summer long. So.
Great, thanks, Kim. Thanks, everybody. Some very informed questions here. And thanks to our panel here, our department heads, presenters. This has been a great session. I know if anybody listening, watching has more questions about any of these topics, of course, contact your select board members, contact John. There's plenty of time. The voting is still 2 months away. So lots of chances to talk about this and learn more. So this is sort of the beginning. Let's take about a 3-minute break here. Let these folks get on their merry way and we'll have our new presenters come up. So we'll start again in about 3 minutes. We don't want to get Okay. Thanks, everybody. Coming back to session here. Wrap up, wrap up. Okay, good. We're getting it now into the nitty-gritty infrastructure part of the evening. Unfortunately, we escaped the first part before the tennis and pickleball really kind of started to take over the stage. So the couple other big items that are going to be on the warning this year are related to water projects and a presentation on the TIF district, some final issues there. So we've got some more presenters this evening, so we'll do the same thing. I'm going to have all three presenters present on their topics, and then we'll have time for a Q&A afterwards. So why don't we start with the Wilder water main replacement? Chris, we'll start with you.
Sure. My name is Chris Halsworth with the Department of Public Works. And this will be the first presentation, which you can see online and go through it on your own if you have any desire to, along with the plans. So first thing I'll do is I'll go over the locations of the improvements, quick project overview, cost, funding impact, project design, show you the voting article. So there are about 9 separate segments of improvements that are needed. These were chosen from the about going on 20-year-old list of projects that were needed to be completed within a reasonable amount of time. Of course, you know, everything costs money, delays happen. So we have finally worked it through, engineered it through, and got it to this point. The first location will be on Norwich Ave. The second will be on Gillette Street. Third, probably most important, Hartford Ave. Some smaller lines on Lexington Avenue, Horseshoe Avenue, Manning Drive, South Street and James Street, and C Street and Chris Carley Drive. Work zone 1 is awful close to the treatment plant. It is a large AC, asbestos concrete line that has failed. There'll be an interesting video you can see at the end of this. This is a problematic pipe. It is a main transmission line in the fact that when the line going down Cranberry Lane goes down, this one takes the flow for the entire town. So it's a very important, critical piece of infrastructure. It's the last segment of pipe on that little segment going down Norwich Ave that has not previously been replaced with modern ductile iron standard pipe. The second zone is Gillette Street. It is the same period of pipe. Very problematic. It's a very crowded street with 2 sewer mains along with this water main. And again, we've been lucky lately to not have problems on this line. But as you make improvements to the mains in the area, you have to be very careful about the improvements and not leaving a weak segment of pipe between the improvements, because that pipe is just going to start having extra pressure and it's going to fail. It's not going to be up to standard. Zone 3. Sorry, it's a little out. Hartford Avenue. Again, there's another video at the end you'll see. We're all familiar. This is another asbestos concrete pipe. It's primarily, a lot of it's under a concrete highway, which unfortunately is a cost driver of working with V-Trans trying to replace it. It's a very problematic pipe, and it is a main transmission line for flow. So it's like the other lines in here, it is considered beyond its useful life. You know, if it was a modern pipe, you're talking a 50 to 75-year pipe. This is, you know, not a modern pipe, so it is well beyond its lifespan. Zone 4 is Lexington Avenue. We fix this line several times a year. It's a small pipe that costs us a lot of work, and it's well overdue to be replaced. Zone 5, which is along the Hartford Avenue replacement segment. It is a undersized, it's a does have some galvanized, which means probably lead. is a problematic segment as far as once we replaced, and it has had some conditions on it, and well overdue for replacement. Zone 6, Manning Drive. Many of you might remember when we've had failures on Manning Drive before. It's a fill section that is Manning Drive is actually a gully filled in to create the street across to Route 5. There is always going to be settling and so forth on a segment like that. We've had breakages before. It's not the best condition, so we are going to upline the entire segment. It's either going to be a fused pipe for the whole length, or it's actually going to be held together, mechanically joined all the way through. So if there is settling or failure, there won't be a failure of the water pipe. It's engineered to be protected against the site that it's on. South Street and C Street are in this batch. They were previously engineered. They've been thrown into this package. They were supposed to be replaced around 2019. COVID slowed down the process. We are down in that neighborhood every year, fixing lines. So that is on the list, as well as C Street and Chris Carley Drive. Again, we are down there fixing breaks every year. It's a very problematic section of the village for us. There's no segment of pipe here that I can't tell you there's either distribution issues, age issues, breakage issues. Every single line here has an issue, and if we piecemeal the replacements, we are going to exacerbate issues for many of these segments. So it is it's a large endeavor. It takes a good chunk of the village of a lot of those issues, but it does not relieve all the lines that actually need to be replaced. But this is, the most critical ones. So again, a lot of these pipes were installed in 1948 to 1965. Again, at the end of their really useful life for the means and methods they were put in, the type of pipe. Some of the smaller lines, 1 to 2 inch, have capacity issues. And when you get a section that's galvanized, even if it says it's an 1.5 inch pipe galvanized, with the corrosion inside, sometimes they're just a pinhole inside the pipe at this point in life. So they don't have that capacity with them anymore. So yeah, the designs have been done, previously gone through the board permissions. They are permitted, they are ready to go. And that moves us on to the scary part, which is the cost, funding, and impact. So we've gone out, we have worked towards, we are working on an asset management plan, which has received us a few more points with the state revolving fund loan, as far as getting into the fundable range on the SRF. The currently estimated project cost for this and all in is $6.355 million. It only gets worse the longer we put it off. I previously said what this would cost many years ago, and I won't do that tonight. So with the SRF, what it is they don't charge an interest fee for the loan that we appear like we want. It's 0%, but they do charge an administrative fee of 2%, which is treated much like interest. Let's go to the pooled loan or the pooled bond. It would be 4.7% interest rate. So the SRF, if we can take advantage of this now, by the time we pull it, it may actually be less, because that's, the trend is stable to less coming up. So there'll be options to be chosen at a later date. there's a 20-year loan or a 30-year loan. And so what I did here is I just took a simple calculation. This is a capital improvement. If you were to charge it to a single family house or a commercial building by EDU as a fixed fee, it's not necessarily something you're using a volume of water. So it's more in line with being a capital cost. I've broken up what this would impact your quarterly invoice with the town for, and that's 1 EDU. So that's the equivalent of a single family house. So, if we were to go with the 20-year loan, for instance, it's going to be $109.41 per year. It is a substantial amount of money, or $27.35 a quarter. It only goes down to $79.88 a year for the 30-year, or $19.97 a quarter. And as you can see, the interest cost is, verging on $1 million more by putting it off. So that's $1 million you could spend somewhere else, replacing another line, or keep it in your pocket. Skip right through the project design. So on our website, you can access on our website the slides. You can also access the construction plans if you want to see how it's going past your house, for instance, or to get a real good feel for the scale of the project. And then the article, we're going to ask the voters to approve the $6.355 million. But again, if we get grants or anything else to defer that cost, that we would take that in the 6.3. You would knock down the actual amount to get bonded. So we will always look for grants and opportunities to defer the amount we would pull through a bond, but that's the bonding amount we're requesting. And I think the video, gives you a good idea about the breaks in these lines and what's going on. So if you don't live in these neighborhoods and experience these, that gives you an idea. The one in the middle, that is Norwich Ave. So when I say it's underground, it's buried, it's very old, it's very hard to assess a water main under the ground that you can't see. It's like a septic system underground you don't see. The one to the right, that's A Street. That's not A Street breaking. That's Hartford Ave flooding the neighborhood to the side of it. So it's been asked, it's been at the top of the list for years. Videos. There's not much more I can say as far as the need goes.
All right, Chris, that's great. Let's continue on. We'll
Just got a couple quick questions I could ask.
we'll get through all three, yeah, and then you can be first up. Yep.
All right. So the White River Junction system is a smaller project. We'll go right through it like we did there, and we'll go to project locations. So we've already started this project with ARPA funds. We did the hard part. Well, what we hope is the hard part, and that is getting the new water main under the railroad tracks with ARPA funding. From there, we move to go down Latham Works towards our wastewater treatment plant. That is a undersized 6-inch cast iron pipe, and that actually follows the railroad. It doesn't actually follow the street. It goes behind the houses under the railroad until the street comes back up closer to the railroad, and then it follows the street. So it's a very dangerous situation, as we found out that we had sewer manhole under the railroad we didn't know about. This is a ticking time bomb underneath the railroad, which we don't want to be responsible for having one of those geysers pop up under the railroad. So the second is completing the improvements on Nut Lane, just a little bit past Harrison Ave. And then a little bit down Harrison Ave that will bring fire protection to the entire neighborhood on the other side of the tracks, which is very important given the restriction of the crossings. And it will also help if someone wants to redevelop the industrial park into, who knows, mixed use or housing above parking. You never know, but it's all about betterment of the community. And I will note that with the age of those lines, they are literally some of the very oldest cast iron pipes in this town. So they are a ticking time bomb, and there are likely lead services that we have yet to be able to dig down, identify, and find that really do need to be replaced. So this would be the perfect opportunity to take care of that. Yeah, there are other lines in Uptown White River and so forth that need to be done, but this is what we have permits in place for, have started, and it's really given the age at 100 years old, roughly, or more, well overdue. Increase the fire protection. It's ready to go. So the cost is a little bit conservative at this time. I honestly don't anticipate pulling the whole amount of the estimate. Hopefully, but right now, the loan amount being requested is 1.5 based on the engineer's calculations. And that gives you a yearly EDU cost of $25.83 on the 20-year loan, or $646 a quarter. So you have to think about them collectively, but they're both very necessary. And the 20-year loan, you would add on another, almost $200,000 of savings by knocking on the 10 years, and you would clear up your bonding capacity that much sooner for critical projects.
Okay, great.
There's no video for this one. If we had a geyser under the railroad, I'd show the video, but.
I know there's a bunch of interest in this as I look at it. If we have questions now about the two water projects, yeah, let's get started on that.
Yeah, my name's Phil Sargent. I'm from Wilder. A couple quick questions. I didn't notice the Sumsick Avenue on the line there to get a new line.
The Sumsick Ave is not on the list. It goes by the priority list in the original 2013 study and where we've had the most problems.
Okay. Next question is, you're going to be working on replacing some of the piping under the Route 5, the concrete road. Is the concrete in the road going to be removed?
Unfortunately, one half of the width of the concrete highway has to be removed in those sections.
So that's not won't happen. Okay, and then the last question I have is, I wondered if the impact fees have been reinstated in the town, so that we get money from the businesses. We don't.
No.
We don't. We don't get any impact. So anybody joining on don't pay anything. It's goodwill of the town, right?
They pay a water and sewer bill and contribute.
Right, just like I do. A lot.
And to hook up,
There's minimal fees. It was all to encourage housing to be developed, was to get rid of them because they do work as a regressive system towards creating housing in the competitive environment. And so
that tax that money onto the town, and we all end up ultimately paying for it through our property tax.
So these are, and you have to remember that impact fees have rules about what you can use them for. And replacement of your existing structures, if you're not creating capacity to serve that, would not be applicable to an impact fee.
Yeah, and that's the thing I don't understand is we have allowed many developments over the past decade, nice, great developments. They're required to uphold the code to have their pipes go into our 50 and 100-year-old infrastructure.
Yeah, you're talking about a bigger
Yeah.
issue, but they have met code. They did, these are pre-our codes lines that we're talking about. These are our lines, not their lines. And the far majority of the larger housing developments in town were developed in a time where those developments did pay impact fees, and a lot of the time they actually did more than pay impact fees. They actually made improvements as well. So
thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Hi, Marcy Bartlett, live in Wilder. This is water. I pay for it 4 times a year. And if you leave it in your car, you can have ice water. I do that too. For one thing, I want to thank you, Chris, and you, Brian, and our select board for working together. It's been years coming. I want to say thank you. We live there. We live here. This is us. This is as fundamental as it gets.
it's going to allow us, but it's going to be basically half the roadway box cut out.
Half the roadway specifically on Hartford or other roads as well?
Hartford Ave.
Hartford Ave,
We
okay.
can trench our own roads, their road. They won't accept a trench in the middle of a lane.
I don't know why not. We've had that with water coming out of it. Anyway, the other thing is, well, we moved into a fixer-upper in '96 and lived in the project. We lived like, gypsies. It was crazy. And that's going to come to the village of Wilder. And I hope that we'll have a good communication process for the residents as the project, assuming it goes through, as the project progresses, so that people know what to expect as best as they can, because it's going to be messy. It's going to be loud. It's going to be dirty. And that's what it's like when you live in a project and we can't just like move out for 6 months.
And typically what we'll do is we'll set up everyone, we'll get everyone's email addresses and so forth, and we'll set up a mass weekly email.
Okay. So there'll be times when water's turned off to certain residents, yes, no?
Oh, Absolutely.
So
There'll
there
be
you go.
scheduled-
Figured I'd say it now.
Yeah, there'll be scheduled shut offs. What we do is we do a mass weekly update. It goes on to social media with JD and so forth. And we try to keep it very open. It's construction. It's surprises under the ground. It will be what it will be.
It
but
will
we'll
be
do our
what it
best
will
to
be.
Control it.
I just wanted to say it now because we're excited. This is long overdue. We need to do it, but it won't be fun for anybody. And we have to look towards the end result where we get a much more reliable system that we can be proud of and that we'll plan for growth as a town as well. Question about asbestos and lead. How will those be mitigated?
So like the asbestos pipe, it really has to be in place. There'll be some places where it has to be removed and it's hazardous waste. There'll be air monitoring. It'll be taken out. There'll be dust control so that it doesn't go airborne. But that'll be very limited. For the most part, we're trying to abandon it in place so that it doesn't become hazardous waste.
Airborne, yeah.
There's certain rules about how you go about doing that with the EPA and the state.
I guess finally, Chris, the last thing I wanted to say is that I'm not afraid to hear what it would have cost us in 2012 because we know it's a lot more now.
Well, I'm sure you heard the previous.
Yes, I
meeting, it's at
did. And
1.5
I'm
million.
going to let that go through scuttlebutt. I'm not going to race saying that here. It was a lot cheaper in 2012, but nonetheless, it's instructive to now we've postponed it. And along the way, there were some really good reasons, I'm sure. But when you postpone something this fundamental, you end up paying for it. And it's not pretty, but I think we have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is construction costs have ballooned. We all know it. Cost of
Absolutely.
housing, everything's ballooned. We're at the point where, you know, some people might recommend you sit on it and maybe there'll be some deflation. In my life, I've never seen deflation. So I've never seen construction costs go down to that degree that it's really going to be that dramatic and save you that much. So.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Marcy. More questions on water? Yeah.
Hi, Ashley Andrews, Hartford Village. I was curious about when the 20-year versus 30-year loan, at what point does that get decided and who decides that?
That's going to be a select board decision.
Okay, so the voters won't have an option as to which.
Yeah, no,
Term.
it's gonna be part of the budget cycle and them figuring out, John could answer it better than me, but it's gonna be about the finances of the town and what the appetite is, and it's a little different than your tax, because it's not part of your taxes, not part of your property taxes. It's about, you know, obviously being careful about not raising your rates too high. So it's gonna be a combination of going through the budget process and figuring out where cuts can be made in the budget to save money or more efficiently done, and to fit that with the budget to have the least amount of impact.
Okay, because it will be paid through the quarterly
Yeah.
water bill like you were showing.
Yep.
But obviously, you know, we all live here and pay both bills, presumably. Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments for Chris? Brown.
Thank you again, Dennis Brown, Hartford. I'm just sitting there wondering, and a little bit I've heard about this. We probably have wastewater lines that run near that or close to this. I just wonder, are we doing anything with those? Why, I don't know how old those are, but are we doing anything about that while we're digging everything up?
So we're not doing anything with the sewer at this point. We don't have an asset management plan for the sewer, or what I'll say is, we're in the middle of doing an asset management plan for the water, right? And we have a pressurized system where there's dramatic needs there. Sewer is a little bit different beast. As soon as we get done with our asset management plan, which is GIS, hydraulic modeling, condition reporting of every item, $1,000 of value or more on the water system, the goal is to move on to the sewer system. The sewer system, I wouldn't call it largely ignored, but it It gets videoed every year, condition, like there's no big red alarms right now going off. But we don't even have a hydraulic model of our sewer system. So going forward, we are working towards getting an asset management plan with hydraulic models and so forth. It's becoming more important with ADUs and everything in infill development. But that's not something we can address as part of this project. It's going to take quite a few years of studying where the deficiencies are, because we don't have a good grasp on that.
So that's just under gravity, not pressure, and that's why it's one reason why it's treated different. Are they roughly the same age, these pipes?
No, so, you know, there's issues, and I don't really want to, this is beyond what we're into tonight. But it's a little bit different in the sense that, you know, we're in the middle of our CSO separation. Right now, we're trying to take care of all our places where we have combined sewer, right? And alleviate as much as we can from that. And part of that goes all the way back to, I think it's the 90s. And if you look at all the CSO plans, it was just all about, we have quite a few new sewers, and then we just turned those sewers into drainage lines. So now, you know, the bigger issue is when we do that study on the sewer, we actually need to study the drainage as well, because we have places where we have villages being handled with an 8-inch main for the drainage, like in Hartford Village. It really needs some serious attention. So
I just asked in the interest, if you got things dug up, if you should visit that while everything's torn
yeah,
up.
it's a completely closed, different system.
You probably
There's
thought of
usually
that
a-
already. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Thank
There's
you.
usually a separation required between water and wastewater lines
Yeah.
for obvious reasons.
And that also drives up the cost of this project, because we can't meet all the separations, so we have to build to a different standard. So.
Thanks, Dennis. Other questions, comments for Chris on these items? Okay, great. We're gonna move to Lori with, are these our final TIF bonds?
It's just our final TIF approval process, yes.
All right.
We are hitting our end. So with that, I want to just say, there's a lot here to absorb in TIF programming. I know that there are people here that have heard it before, but, and there are many that may not, may have heard it before, but still it's a very complex system. So I've tried to simplify it a lot. So we're going to be going through it, and I'll talk about how the program works, how it's been working in Hartford. And then we'll move on to what our final project is and how the program works in that regard. So at the beginning, let's just talk a little bit about, you know, what is this thing called TIF? It stands for actually a Tax Increment Financing District. It was something that was established by the state several years ago, but it was only until maybe the early 2000s that it started being looked at more extensively as a really good option for communities that are going through redevelopment all over the state, and take advantage of an opportunity to get state funds coupled with local funds into a special fund called TIF in order to help do these 100-year system updates, come to modern day standards in terms of water, wastewater, all of that infrastructure, so that you can deal with modern day development. And it works hand in hand with the resurgence of our downtowns. So in that light, Hartford embarked on a process in 27, well, it goes even further back. We had to get ourselves designated as a downtown. We had to have a growth center designation. And then finally, we met the criteria in order for us to pursue a TIF district designation. And so in the process of all of that, we created a comprehensive downtown revitalization plan, which involved a tremendous amount of community participation from citizens, from businesses, from the town, from consultants. And we came up with a detailed plan, which became the plan that we went forward with for revitalization improvements in our downtown, which include both sides of the river. So that's sort of, you know, the history of how we got to where we are today. So even though this was approved in 2011, It has 10 years of history before that. And now we're at our final stage of implementation of everything. So just to give you some quick overview of what's happening in a TIF program, for many of you, it is this concept. If you want to go back to the previous one, we can just quickly go back over that. It is a way for the town to do that private investment that we want to have in our communities. So it's a way to stimulate that, recognizing that we have these very old systems like you're talking about, Chris was just talking about, in our downtowns, and we need to bring them up to a standard so that redevelopment, new development, and expansion in our residential and our community areas, which are both high priorities and have become even higher priorities in our town plan in recent years. And that has been the impetus behind it. And it is this but-for concept. And I know some people may have questions, what does that mean? But the but-for concept really is, but for the town putting the investment into these projects, and you know it's $13 million, so that's a lot to divvy up amongst different community investment projects, and the coordination of that amongst those to have the full broad redevelopment impact that we wanted. You just can't do that in a piecemeal manner. You need to take it on and take it on as a whole. So that's what we did in 2011. We put together a plan. It went to the voters. It went to the state, and a $13 million revitalization public infrastructure plan was established and adopted by the local voters as well as the state. And that's where we have been since 2011 of implementing that plan, and we are now at our final stage. So let's talk a little bit about what we've done over the course of the years. If you want to get to the next one, you can see that what made this possible is that we have a special TIF fund, and we are making these improvements, and then these improvements, and I really have to share with you my chart. I'm so proud of this. So this, as you might recognize, is from the Center for Cartoon Studies, and they work with us on this. When we were selling this, explaining the concept in prior to the 2011 select board, and basically what it says, we need the revitalization here. And I'll tell you, this is the corner of Bridge and Main. You know it's there today, but that wasn't there when we started this process. So we started there, and it really says we need the revitalization of the public property, revitalization of public property in order to encourage the private sector development, which it did build, you do see it out there today. And that results in an increased property valuation and job creation. You can see the bustling downtown. There's no question about what we've accomplished with this. And then it comes over here. And so it's like, well, those new taxes are paying on the bonds and the loans that we've gotten through the state to do the improvements that are needed over here. Not all of it goes into the TIF fund, only 75% of it goes into the TIF fund. But 25% does come back into the general fund for us, and 25% goes back to the state education fund. Now, some people say, well, that would happen anyway. Well, I'm sorry, I'm a testament to that. I will say it doesn't, because I didn't have any knocks on my door before this stuff started happening. And they were knocking on my door now. And now you can see what's going on there. We have a parking problem. So we're working on all of those issues, but what it tells you is that but for the investment that you, all as the community and the select board have supported over the years for this, it has made the difference, and it has generated the tax revenue that we can use to pay on these debts, which we've had a few of them, and we're going to go through that. So, so let's talk a little bit more about that. If we can go to the next slide. You can see the boundaries of where we are, and some people think, oh, it's just in the heart of the downtown, but it's not. It actually goes across the river and includes Pine and Prospect Street. Now, Prospect Street was our first project that we did. And I don't know if some of you remember what that looked like. That was, like an old industry, but the worst part about it is all that water that was flowing out, that was stormwater, that actually was going into the river. And you look at there today, what do you got? You've got 3 beautiful buildings. We've got 42 housing units. We've got a river walk, and we've got a really nice block, to the point that we now have a parking problem there too. So let's, we'll get into a little bit more on those things, but we can walk into the next one as we go into there. So we talked a little bit about Prospect Street, and the other project that we worked on next was the Courier Street extension. Again, another situation which was dealing with an old auto repair and auto show. As some of you, probably many of you know, it was the oldest Cadillac dealership in the world. Well, not actually in the US, I think at that point. But it was still active, but that was changing, and Northern Stage, you know, came in to use one of the buildings there, and the property ended up being something as a potential. And what it was is the potential for redevelopment and what became the assisted living and the memory care building there. And that became possible because we actually created a normal street there. And we had to do a lot of stuff with readjusting right of ways and dealing with grades and everything like that. But we put systems into the ground that never really existed in terms of stormwater and everything like that. So you can see, we created a whole new extension to our downtown by doing that and creating an access area. And that then leads us, if you can go to the next one, some of the improvements that we did on South Main, North Main, and Gate Street. Again, interconnectedness with our systems, and that's not only under the ground, but above the ground. And in order for us to have a functioning downtown, we really need to have those interconnected parts going on. And one of the things that we realized that with the South Main Gates and North Main streets is we really needed to step back and look at all of those systems and how they interplayed, and making sure that when they go from this block to this block to this section, and thank you DPW for all of their work and working with us on these projects, is that we needed to make sure that we had that interconnectedness. And that's below the ground and above the ground. And that's what we did. So we completed that. Many of you know it rolled out right at the beginning of COVID. And so it took us an extra few years to really get it done. We've got a little bit of signage left to do, and we know we're doing a little bit of the streetscape stuff, but we're pretty much done with the work that we need to do. South Main Street parking lot. Everybody is driving through there today. We know we have some issues there that we're still tidying up a little bit with our fencing for the dumpster area. But again, that became a project that needed to be interwoven with the final leg segment of the Courier Street, so that we can again have good circulation. Many of you will notice not only is it functional and meets all our code requirements, it drains properly, we have good circulation, we have EVs in there, we have ADA accessibility that actually you can get all the way from the parking lot either out to South Main Street or over onto Gate Street, and now you have the accessibility through that parking lot. And we learned recently that we are going to get level 3 EV chargers very soon in there too. So, and a lot of that is putting together all the pieces. The South Main Street parking lot, again, all of these things I'm talking about there really do feed into all of the things that we've accomplished in the downtown. And that includes at least 170 units of new housing in our downtown that we have created. And that doesn't include the 80 units that we have at the assisted living. So there's a lot that has gone on in the downtown that has been made possible through all of these infrastructure improvements that we've done. So if you can move on to the next page. With the town square parking lot, we had to do a little bit of that partial completion when we were doing the South Main Street realignment. So as you may have seen, we have some on-street parking that now is parallel instead of being perpendicular. It solves some of our circulation issues there, and we'll be working on making that, finishing that off and coming in this year. Maple Street, 2 properties along 87 and 101. Small project, but missing that link of sidewalk that we needed to do. And again, with the redevelopment of those properties, it made for safe pedestrian access for that segment going into our downtown and going as also to the co-op. Courier Street, Church Street North, Bridge Street drainage project. That's a long-standing project that was actually approved in 2016, but we had to put that on the side while we figured out everything going on with North Main, South Main, and Gate Street. And now we've finished that out. That's one of the projects that was approved, but we didn't go out to debt for it yet. And that's been one of the things that I've always held back until we were ready for a project. I didn't want to go out to debt. We're going to be a little bit different this year. But again, all of that is serving what we're doing. So where are we in terms of the status of our TIF funding? $13 million. We've gone out to bond, and you can see for in the 2014, 16, 17, 19, 20, 20, that's when the voters gave us the authorization. And there's two things that they have to give authorization for. That is, it is part of our TIF plan. It is a TIF project. It's not just the funding of it. It is, are we going forward with this TIF project that was in our original $13 million? Every time we're going out for a project, I have to go back to you as the community, and I have to go back to the state to say, you know that plan we put together about how we were going to fund this 13 million, and everybody said yes? Well, every time we have to go back to the voters and back to the state to say, well, it's still working. You know, we're going to meet our deadlines. We're going to meet our funding deadlines. We're going to meet our fiscal responsibility in terms of those deadlines. So, so that's the amount, is the 11 million, almost 12 million there. There are some projects there that I did not list over there, but we do have in that segment right there. There are approximately $10,733,710 exactly that we have actually pulled the debt on. And the reason why we haven't done that is we already talked about that for the drainage project that we're now going to pull the debt on that. That's 700,000 there. But we also had some project savings. We've got money that we thought we needed on those bonds, and we don't need to use it because we got things in the door for less than we anticipated. Wow. Okay. But we can reallocate those funds. And we have a process to do that within the state. And that's what we did. I went before the state, the select board approved it, and it was approved to do that. So you will see there that if you look at the 11,869,000, that goes to the first line under their balance in the financial plan, needs full debt and bond authorization. That's the one that nobody's ever seen before. Okay, so we have to have the full approval at the local level to authorize us to go and fund a project under TIF and to go out to incur debt. Then the second line there of debt bond authorization, but not incurred yet. We talked about that, and that's the one I just talked about. That's the one that if you add it up with the 10 million, that comes to the 11,869,600. And then we have our surplus proceeds that we already took the bond out. And again, the projects came in under budget. So we've got a little bit of money there we can reallocate. And those are the funds that we're going to use for this last TIF project. We will build out what we can with those dollars. And we know that probably what we have on the books is going to be something that we may have to come to a point of saying, we can afford to do this, but we may have to postpone this. But we're hoping we'll be able to get everything done. So if we can go to the next slide. So where are we in our revenue? So we've talked about our expenditures. Now it's on the revenue side. The money that we're supposed to incur through those additional taxes based on the new infrastructure that has gone, that the new private sector development that has occurred since 2011, we should be able to collect those dollars. Actually, we couldn't collect them until 2014 because you can't collect them until you've actually incurred your first debt. And that was when we incurred our first debt. But anyhow, so you can see. So let's just take a little picture right there of where we are right now. Now, I want to just point out to you that we have more than doubled the property valuation in the district already. Now, it's 2026. According to our original plan, where we said everything was going to work okay for the 13 million, we had estimated by 2034 that we would only be at 62,500,000. So we've already passed that deadline. Again, the program works. So what I would suggest here is that let's just, to try and add up all those numbers and everything, it gets a little crazy, but let's just take a little slice of where we are in 2026 and what are we going to get in 2026. And so based on, and this is exactly what actually has already been put into our account, our special accounts for TIF. And you can see 490,000, almost 491 $1,000 from our, from town property taxes. 75% of what goes into the TIF fund, 25% goes into the general fund. And then you can see the same numbers there for the state property taxes. And altogether, what's going into the TIF fund for this year is over $1 million. That's pretty good. And every year it keeps going up. So I think we're really hitting the mark of where we thought we would be, and we're far above it also. So if we can go to the next slide, that would be really great. So what are we talking about here for the next project? Well, again, it's water, wastewater, stormwater, sidewalk, ADA lightings, landscaping, road work. What you heard from Chris earlier is the same thing that we experienced at the very beginning of the TIF district, and we still have a few little areas where we got to do that. It's not always all underground, it's above ground as well. So we're talking about that for these little links and segments that we haven't quite gotten done. So like North Main Street, well, we know that there's a whole segment from Bridge Street and Courier Street that going forward and up north. We've walked the streets, we know that they're a problem. We know Courier Street has this huge section in the middle of it that doesn't really have good accessibility, and it's in terrible shape. So when we do the underground stuff, we want to make sure we have enough money to do the above ground stuff too. And we know that, so that's what we want to do. Same thing about Maple Street on Route 14. So we've got some projects that are coming along on Route 14, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But we've got to pay some attention to what's going on the other side. We did a little bit of it, but we need to do some more. Church Street, again, when we go up and we're talking about trying to extend along North Main Street, it is going to cross into Church Street, and we need to make sure that if we have interconnectedness there going on with the water and wastewater and stormwater and our access points, we need to make sure that we're planning for that. If we can't, we're planning for it. And if we can stretch the dollars to make it all work so that we can get all this work done, then we will do that. So, and now, and of course, Bridge Street, as we know, we have to do improvements on Courier Street that go behind Courier, North Main Street and some of the properties there. It comes down Courier Street, and then it outlets onto down onto Bridge Street, and then behind the museum there. So those are things that we have to make sure that the infrastructure on all of those streets that are impacted are properly addressed. So if you can go to the next slide, then we can really talk about that. Here are one of the things that we have to establish at the state level is the interconnectedness between the improvements that we're doing with the public infrastructure and how that does impact the development that's either already in the downtown and also coming on board. And we also have to establish that we're going to have adequate revenue coming in. So typically what I've done in the past is I've said, okay, I know that there's a lot of stuff out there, and we know over the course of the next 10 years, which is the period of time in which we can continue to have our district is viable, is to 2036. We know that there's a lot more development that's going to occur, but I'd like to go towards what's the stuff that's right in front of us right now that we have property owners talking about. That's the co-op food store. Some of you may have recalled in the past year that there was a dialogue going back and forth with the co-op food store about continuing a leasing arrangement they had to use the public parking lot in order to make sure that the town continues to have a food store. And we want them to continue. Well, they want to not only stay here, they want to expand. So they're expanding into the area, the other segment of that building, a little piece of it. It looks like it's all one building, but it's technically owned by somebody else. So they're expanding into that. And it's also an opportunity for us to deal with the circulation patterns from the street into that lot. So that's what we're talking about there. So if you can go to the next slide. And then we have Briggs Gates Building. There is a new developer that is working with the current property owners, and that would be renovation of the third floor of that currently is commercial, but it would be converted into 10 apartments. And then there's upgrades that would be done on the other 2 floors for commercial and office space. Hotel Coolidge is there's been some discussion about that as well, and that would be a total redevelopment of the block, 95 apartments, new commercial space, and then looking at housing that would give a broad range for folks as well on that. Next slide. So what are we talking about in terms of costs? Now, the total cost there is the 3,548,880, excuse me, 880. That includes the debt as well as your interest. 6% interest rate. We're putting it out at that level. 20-year loan, payments to begin in 2026. Over a 20-year period, that's what we're talking about in terms of 3827, including principal, interest, and fees. We at the moment, yeah, okay, that's true. Okay, I got that. So one of the things that's based on the 226290. That's what we're going on for the debt. The other amount is that small little piece I said, we already have the debt incurred, but we haven't spent it, we underspent. So that's where you get up to the 22629. The anticipated growth, we've already talked about that, and the retention for our education fund goes through June 30th, 2036. So let's pop on to the next slide. So we are in our warrant article, there are two parts to it, and I want to make sure there are two components that work hand in hand, again, going through the things that we talked about. The totally new piece of it that hasn't been voted by the voters in any way, shape, or form. And then you'll notice this number is a little bit higher there than what that number would be. You know, we're at the tail end of a few little projects going on right now that we have budgets. If for some reason we're able to come in under budget on those two, there might be a little bit of money left over, and we'd want to be able to put it into this last final project. So that's basically why it's a little bit above that amount. And you know, that's the attorney says I can do that. And so we're going to make the provision that you as the voters know, you know that. So if we can go to the next part of this. We're also some other pieces in our warrant, and we're going through this in a level of detail, and I hope I appreciate your patience on that. By statute, if I do not tell you stuff, then we are in jeopardy with state auditors. So there are so many components of this that have to be part of this public hearing for you all to do this. So this is related costs. It includes such items as permitting, legal audits, outside consultants, district administration, and a piece of that is up to $100,000 could be used as part of the financing that we get, whether it's a bond or other forced types of notes. I have to identify that. Most of it we do as a direct from the tax revenue. We don't do it through the debt. I prefer to do that. If we're going to go to debt, we might as well just put it into the project and not these kinds of things. And we usually have enough within our income through the tax revenue to do it that way. But I have to notice it to you. And then again, I told you that there was debt that was incurred. And then there's a little bit of it that we have to actually state to you as giving you notice as the voter that that's the amount of money that we have actually taken out debt on so far. And then that I have to give notice to you. If for some reason the money isn't there in the TIF fund, you are on the record to have to pay for that. And then also that you're using any unexpended proceeds of the bonds or notes to finance the improvements and related costs of the proposed TIF project. So again, just what I'm doing. So if you can go to the next slide. Key dates, again, I have to make sure you're all aware of it. When we were approved, 2019, this is our final debt, and this is something that you really have to understand. Reason why some of these nuances are here. We have a deadline by when we can incur debt, and that is coming up very soon. So if we want to use all of the money that has not yet been authorized by the voters, and if we want to use all the money that has been authorized by the voters to incur debt, but we have not yet incurred debt, we have to pull that loan by the end of March 31, 2026. I have been to the legislative body twice, trying to get them to recognize, when we thought in 23 we would had it, we wanted them to recognize that they should give us some more flexibility in that. There is none. I don't see it's happening yet. So we have other ways to do that other than using bonds. Bonds have a certain requirement that on the date that you have it approved, you have to have at least a 30-day window. Well, town meeting never gets you to that 30-day window. And I've banged my head on their walls enough times. I'm not sure another time is going to make any difference, but we'll try. So that's why we are looking at that, and we can go with conventional loans and other financing mechanisms that do not tie it to bond funds. And that's what we will be doing, and that's why the 6% is in there. So I just also want to go through one more thing on that last slide beforehand. Well, I've already talked about that actually. We anticipate, but that it really is an important thing. We anticipate, and I've gone through the analysis just on the estimated income that we anticipated on those 3 projects. And we do anticipate that there will be other projects coming in on private sector development that would generate taxes. But just based on what we have right now and all of the debt that we have, in 2036, there will be sufficient funds remaining in order for us to pay on the loans through 2046, which would be the 20-year period. That can be reevaluated at the time that we pull the debt as to whether or not we want to conclude at 2036 and pay off everything at that time or not. Those are things that will be looked at before we pull the debt. And so just like Chris was saying, there are different scenarios that can be looked at. And that would be a select board's decision. So there we are at that point. And if we go on to the next one, this is just the language. If you want to see stuff in more detail, the PowerPoint, our copies of that are on the back table as well as they are online. So thank you for your patience. I know this is a lot to absorb. I tried to do it in a way that you understood where we've been, where we are today, and what our next steps are.
Wow, Lori, when I first met you 25 years ago, you were already thinking about this and working on it. And the fruits of your labors are so apparent downtown here. It's amazing to get to the far end of this. And yeah, you're still standing. Questions for Lori, comments?
Tad Montgomery Wilder. In the Coolidge or Briggs buildings projects, is there funding in that to help with the thermal energy network evaluation?
So that's not an infrastructure that we can finance through TIF. TIF has a very prescriptive way in which you can put projects into it. That was decided in 2011 to add into that, and going above that level or doing something separate from what was in there generally is not approved. So, but they just continue to go to other resources for that. And then, those are the kinds of things that could be integrated into, the work that we do, make sure that there's a complementary coordination.
Joe from White River. Just curious, you were talking about residential units being added. What are the estimated monthly costs of those units? That's something that a resident who makes a mean income that's appropriate with the state of Vermont going to be able to afford, or is this going to be other luxury units which have already been put downtown?
So we can't control that. That's not really within our purview to do that. But from a planning perspective, what we're trying to do with these redevelopments, and then you saw that the area median income information was on one of the slides, and that is within that range of where eligibility for other funding sources, either within the Upper Valley, a housing fund, or a state level. Those are the kinds of things, or even the other funding options that are out there that are being explored right now, are focusing in on those kinds of opportunities. So typically, just to give people a sense of it, like 80% of the median income of AMI for our area is a little bit just under $90,000 a year for a family of 4. So, and that kind of gives you an idea of where that range is. We're doing everything we can to encourage and support the flexibility in the housing in terms of type of housing, cost of housing, and just that the range of community members that have incomes to be able to continue to live in our community. So we do have a new person on our staff that's working on that quite extensively too. So.
Lori, thank you for your years of work on this. It's amazing. Tim Ferriel, and I'm kind of wearing my downtown hat, not my select board hat tonight. I just wanted to point out the concept that I have in downtown is that, I don't know if anybody's aware here, but if you go back long enough in history, the area that we have, I think we're now referring to as Town Square. Some people call it the Triangle Lot. Years ago, that was a graceful park. It was graced with trees and it was quite a lovely little spot. And I do have a little bit of Lebanon envy because they have Coburn Park, which I think is a spectacular asset to the community. And I'm only bringing this up because, in the planning process, as you know, White River was sort of critiqued by being very auto-centric, a lot of pavement and a lot of parking, obviously. And I hope nobody will shoot me for this, but I would encourage us to kind of rethink Village Square and really make it less about parking and automobiles and more about people in terms of green space, trees, and whatever we could do to sort of soften that landscape. I really would love to have outdoor summer concerts in downtown, and we don't really have a venue for that. So I think we really have an opportunity there to rethink that space. I know it's traditionally been parking. And if you look at the current plan that you have in front of us, it's very auto-centric. It's all parking and pavement. So I really think that we should rethink that space because I think it's a valuable asset to the kind of the downtown core, and that we could kind of do some rethinking. So thank you.
But I appreciate that, and I recognize that with all the other stuff going on, we've been delayed in getting back to that community discussion on it. What you see out there today, and I know that it's still going to be the parking spaces of what we have on the books. So that is something that if we want to re-examine, but where the parking is a little bit different. There's a whole little area, and it's not going to be a big area right now, but there is a plan to have an area there that could have little music concerts people can sit around and everything. But I get what you're saying, and that is a whole thing with our parking study. Perhaps we can evaluate how we can accommodate something like that that we're embarking on very shortly. To look at that, but that's going to be up to the select board. Obviously, that. But to have those conversations to see that. Okay.
Dennis Brown, Hartford again. I have a question for the moderator. I had some things I wanted to mention that are just about our budget overall and tax season, but I'm not sure this is the appropriate time. Is that welcome, or should I wait till budget candidates night or some other time?
We're a little after 8. How's everyone feeling here? Tired or fine? Tired. I guess, Dennis, maybe we want to hold those comments. Yeah.
Very well.
Yeah.
Thank
Sorry
you for that consideration.
Yep. Other questions for Lori on our TIF?
It may not relate to what the TIF project has in mind, but it's a concern of mine, and it has to do with the traffic patterns and low barrier shelter that's going on where 25,000 gifts used to be. I'm hoping that the town has some input on what's going on in that area, because there's no real place to cross the road safely if you want to go from the sidewalk to Route 4, or to, as my wife says, go to the tea garden or whatever. Do you have any input on that one?
I appreciate that, Dan. That is also a little bit off track. Maybe we have select board members here, or maybe check with Lori after this, because that's after just having Dennis not have a chance to ask his. I really don't want to
Well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can check into that with my staff and see what the story.
Were out there.
Okay. Other questions for Lori about TIF? Yes.
I have one. Sylvia Provo, White River Junction. Having been involved, I'm gonna piggyback on Tim's comment. Having been involved in the establishment of the tree board and having been on the planning commission for many years, I'd like to comment on green space. And Laura, you mentioned working above ground and the importance of working above ground. When we have proposals coming to our community for projects, we always expect them to have a landscape plan. In the agreement, there is a maintenance component. However, there's no follow through with maintenance in our town. We ask people and expect people to put a lot of money in the beautification of their project. My concern is that there's no one holding people accountable. And the community and these projects could continue to be gorgeous if we just had someone monitoring the care. A tree dies, no one cares. Trees aren't trimmed or pruned. The landscape becomes plastic flowers. I mean, I just want to see more attention to that because landscape, gardens, parks, downtown beautification communicates to people that I care about my town. And I want to see more of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sylvia. Lori, do you want to speak to that as it relates to TIF?
Well, as it relates to TIF, I mean, I don't disagree with you. It's been a conversation that I've had for quite a while. And we have put something in place, I think, in the last year in order for us to get more of the beautification out there. The last 2 seasons, we've gotten the bigger planters out there. We've got the hanging pots. And in doing that, we have to have the maintenance going with it. So that's what we're covering as part of our costs right now. That who's putting them in, it is also doing the maintenance. And I know that there's been discussions with the Public Works Department on what they can do within their own staffing about doing some of the, around the sidewalks and that kind of area and doing some ongoing maintenance. But I direct that again to John and the select board, about making sure that we have adequate sources for that going forward. We're always looking at that.
And I should
Hey, Sylvia, I wanna
clarify.
make-
And then you're talking about the private sector as well.
I want to make sure this is about the 2 bond items.
Yeah,
So we're getting a little
okay.
bit.
Oh, because both, the money is about taking care of the top too, right? But I just want to say, if we held the people who are presenting their projects with the landscaping and asked them to maintain
Well,
and
those are
keep
the
up with the
things too, right?
maintenance, it would help
Yeah.
the whole picture.
Great.
Right, great.
I'd agree, Smart, I live in Wilder, just on this topic really briefly. There is another, in addition to the tree board, there's another active organization in town called the Hartford Garden Friends. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. So they do a lot of maintenance of public gardens around town. And I'm sure they're always looking for people to come involved and help with that. So I just want to shout out their work and know that they are an active organization that is thinking all year round about beautification of our downtown areas.
Thanks, Ida. Other questions for Lori about the bond issues? Okay, great. We've arrived at the end of our meeting. Thank you, everybody, for attending both in person and on Zoom. This is the first of 4 meetings or events. The next one will be Budget and Candidates Night. It's Monday, the 23rd of February. Then our, what's that?
Where are we holding them?
That'll be up at the high school. Yeah, usually 7 p.m. Although
School auditorium.
auditorium. Okay, great. Our floor meeting for town meeting this year is actually in February on the 28th, the last Saturday of February. And then town meeting itself is on May 3rd, the first Tuesday. So
March 3rd.
I'm sorry, March 3rd. Thank you very much. Yeah. I think Hanover has their town meeting in May, right? So yeah, we don't. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and we'll see you at Budget and Candidates Night in a few months. Awesome, Lori. Amazing, right?